So, hello everyone. My name is Winsome Bingham, and I'm the author of this amazing illustrated book, Soul Food Sunday, illustrated by C.G. Esperanza. Soul Food Sunday is about a little boy coming of age and his granny teaching to cook soul food. I'm one of those people that don't believe that cooking and laundry and cleaning should be gender specific. I think everyone should be well rounded and self sufficient, and everybody has to eat. And the best thing that we can do is make sure our children are prepared to be by themselves. One day they might be married and one day they might be by themselves. They'll go off to college. You as a parent might work late, but you want to make sure everybody eat. You can call and say, hey, throw something in the oven or do this. Kids need to know how to do that. My son was washing his own clothes at 7. Yeah, he had to learn. And I think that's one of the things about soul food is learning how to do things. But I think a bigger thing for me with soul food is simple this. I read a lot, and it's always this push for kids to be free on the page to just roam the world. Being black and brown and from marginalized community, that at times are not safe, right? Our children don't have the luxury just to walk the world and be okay. So a lot of things for me when I write, it's always intergenerational. It's always people around each other, whether they're learning or just enjoying themselves. That's so, so, so important to me. And in soul food, I felt like what's one of the biggest things to do then when families come together, talk trash, enjoy each other, eat food, laugh, play, but just being around family and being comfortable. And it's a sense of community, a sense of security and safety. And those things matter to me, but I think they're just as important to anyone and everyone. And especially in 2020, when the world just went chaotic and people were so busy ripping and running and not realizing what's missing. And then they wake up, their loved ones are gone. And I think people are looking back at that and saying, oh my gosh, we need to relish these moments. We need to not take them for granted anymore. And I think soul food offers that. It gives this roadmap of how can we get together? What can we do to bond, be together, to appreciate, love on each other? And I think that's what soul food offers. So, one of the questions that was asked of me is when I was writing this book, did I think of an illustrator? And the answer is no. The truth is, this book was written, I kept saying 2013, but I found the original manuscript in 2012. It was just sitting in the drawer forever. And I went to a workshop and I was taking a chapter book workshop at Highlights and had to submit a chapter book. But I didn't have anything written for a chapter book. I just wanted to learn the basic. But you get to get a manuscript critique. And I was like, I have a manuscript been sitting in a drawer. Let me get some feedback on it. And so the editor that read the manuscript thought it was ready to go. And 2 weeks later sent me an email like, hey, we want to acquire this. I don't know what your agent had for it. So I never thought of an illustrator as I was writing this book. My other projects, yes, but not soul food. And okay, and so, and which is interesting. So when I found, so with see, when it went to auction, and I was speaking to the editors, I would ask them, well, who do you see illustrating this book? And everyone told me who they chose and why. But when I got to Emma and I was like, well, who do you see illustrating this book? And she was like, well, I have an artist I want to work with. That was it. That was done. No more questions. And I was like, well, okay. So, and I cannot lie to you when I tell you, I love it. It is gorgeous. It is beyond my wildest dreams. So CG, you did that. I am so, so, so grateful. And I love it. I love everything about this book.
My name is Charles George Esperanza, aka CG Esperanza, also aka Chalaranza. It's a new name I gave myself. And I am the illustrator of the amazingly written Soul Food Sunday. And when I first read Soul Food Sunday as a manuscript, it brought me back to the 90s when me and my family would all come to New Jersey to have a big Thanksgiving dinner at my uncle's house. We would all come from the Bronx, and everything would just be set so beautifully. And my uncle and my grandma and my other uncle would all cook the dinner. And I wanted to relive that in my mind because it doesn't happen so much now. So Soul Food Sunday gave me the perfect opportunity to not only relive it, but also envision how I can bring my traditions back to my family. When I started thinking of how the characters would look in Soul Food Sunday and everything, I just envisioned how my uncle's house looked in New Jersey. His house looks a little like this. So I kind of wanted to make it look a little bit like his, but also put my own flavor on it. Like, what if it was my house and I was the the one cooking all the dinner? How would it look? So it's kind of a fusion between both of our styles. This spread right here is just me and my cousins playing video games, and there was always the little cousin that was always excluded, and they really wanted attention, and everybody else was all entranced by the video game, by the TV. So I definitely wanted to throw that in there. And then my cousin Shantae was always in the backyard playing basketball too, so had to put that in there. Yeah, I can honestly say everything from this book is just something that was a vivid memory in my mind. And I was like, I want something that matches Winsome's words, you know, and gives it a little more, and gives it even more life than she gave it. The part where, Winsome wrote, Granny goes in the kitchen with Mama and her sisters and straps on an apron. When she said, she gave this whole sentence to an apron. So I was like, that just can't be any apron. That has to be a special apron that, catches attention and is going to be a character on itself. So that's when, I gave the grandma this colorful African mask apron. It's an entire character on itself. It's always looking over the food and looking over the little kid when he's cooking. I wanted to get my Uncle Sammy. He is an amazing cook in the family. He's been the grill master in our family. He actually owns a seafood spot in Inglewood, New Jersey now. And his food is just amazing. And I wanted him to pose as Roscoe Ray in the book. But then I started thinking to myself, I was like, when I was this kid's age, my uncle was in his 30s or something. So I was like, I should probably pose as Roscoe Ray because I'm in my 30s. So it'd be a little bit more realistic. So then I was like, I'm gonna be Roscoe Ray. So as you can see the resemblance between us. Of course, my Uncle Sammy doesn't dress exactly like that, but I was like, I'm gonna put my own flavor on it. His personality, he's always laughing, he's always cracking jokes. So I kept that in there and then gave him my fashion style. So yeah, I could go on and on about what all of these pictures mean to me, and because there's just so much. So Winsome, so there, the biggest distinction about Soul Food Sunday, and what another thing that actually drew me to the project was that, of course, you had a boy learning from his grandmother, and I feel like that's definitely something we haven't seen. This season there are a couple grandparent teaching the grandchild to cook books, but it's always a little girl. So what made you want to make this a boy?
Yeah, it was suggested for, so when this manuscript too was also written, it had a lot of patois, right? A lot of patois, because it was basically written. So my family in New York, every Sunday, we would go to President Street, my Aunt Peggy's house, and she cooked, and everybody from all over New York were there. You're gonna see them because we go there 2 o'clock every Sunday to eat. And that moment is that realization for me. But the foods were different. The foods were, rice and peas, curry goat, jerk chicken, like all this stuff. Yeah, we have similarity because everybody love macaroni and cheese, no matter where you're from, right? And she had macaroni and cheese and cabbage and different things. But also, I grew up in Florida. And soul food is my thing. I was married to a military man who was a chef in the army, and he's from Louisiana. So soul food for me is comfort food. But the little boy came about because after the manuscript was written, it was written with me in mind. And it was in a conversation that I had with my agent. And that's how it was changed to a boy. But to me, honestly, it wasn't far-fetched because I taught my son how to cook. All my cousins are cook. I have a lot of Rastafarians. They cook because they don't eat salt. My cousin didn't trust my mom to cook without pork. So they all cook. So a boy cooking is not far-fetched for me. And I really, really just think at the end of the day that kids, when it comes to cooking, it should never, ever, ever be gender specific. Like, kids got to eat. They have to eat. Boys have to eat. And then again, one day, that boy will turn up, maybe be a father or uncle or cousin or a mate or single. Still needs to eat. So that's how the boy came about.
Oh, and one more question, because you brought up the patois. Is there any way, or will there ever be a time where we could read the original manuscript with the patois in it, or maybe a second version?
Actually, yeah, I have it printed somewhere, but I can find it. Yeah, it's a whole soul food with a Caribbean twist. So it's the setting is different. We play in dominoes and Peter Pat, watching wrestling. It goes back to 1984 where we used to go to Madison Square Garden to watch snooker fly and all those wrestlers. My Aunt Peggy, WOR9 on Saturdays, and watch wrestling. All that stuff is in there. That nostalgia of the 80s.
Wow,
They just modernized it. Yeah.
I hope there's a part 2 then that has all that stuff in it, because that sounds.
But you have to talk to Emma for that one. It's crazy you brought that up because after I wrote Soul Food, of course I wrote a sequel to Soul Food. And when I wrote a sequel to Soul Food, it was Fish Fry Friday. And Emma's like, I don't think I want that to be your second book. So that's still sitting, but maybe one day she'll come back and then she'll say, let me look at Fish Fry Friday and see.
Fish Fry Friday was definitely a thing in my family, and we had the crabs, we had the lobster tail, the salmon, the shrimps every Friday. So and we would do it in Virginia too. So that's an amazing. I think that'd be incredible.
Yeah. So CG, I am now a fan. As you know, I bought a couple copies of Boogie Boogie Y'all, and sent those to you to sign. But my question is, how do you determine what it is that you're going to illustrate? Like, what is how do you pick your projects?
Yeah, so whenever I pick a project, or I do any art in general, whenever I paint something on a canvas, I ask myself, how is this challenging the status quo of what we know as in mainstream society? And with Boogie Boogie Y'all, it's challenging people's perspectives of graffiti. In Soul Food Sunday, I felt like again, with it being a boy learning from his grandmother, I thought that was challenging the status quo of what we see in children's books today. And I even tried to push it a little further by, jazzing up, the grandma, giving her purple hair, making her hip, because I feel like a lot of times older women are portrayed, you know, in a more subtle way than you see in real life. So I wanted to make sure she was the coolest person in the book. Yeah, so anything that I feel like is going to challenge people's perspectives and make them see things in a different way, I'm all for it.
Well, I just want to ask CG what's his next project, unless it's top secret.
um, I don't even know if it's top secret, but my next book is a, another thing that's kind of pushing the status quo about sneakers and sneaker culture, and the how my neighborhood of the Bronx relates to that sneaker culture and everything. So that's kind of, yeah, in a snapshot, that's pretty much the project that I'm working on.
Nice.
Oh yeah, so if can I ask you, you mentioned Fish Fry Friday, but is there any other project that you're kind of, you know,
Yeah.
really
So
excited about?
I am super, super excited. I have a chapter book series coming next year from Raycraft. And it's
Oh,
called Fort Good, and it's about some military kids, some military brats, friendship and family again, of course. And that military, just a slice of a glimpse into military life, kids living on a military post, on an army post. So I have that, and then I have Life is Beautiful next year coming from Simon and Schuster from Beach Lane Books.
so thank you so much for everybody who joined us for this amazing conversation. I had a great time. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Winsome. And thank you, everybody out there.
And I just want to reiterate that. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for showing Soul Food Sunday so much love. We can feel it, we can see it, and we appreciate you talking about it, sharing it, advising others to invest in it. We love you, we love it, and thanks again for having us.